Hannah had always found comfort in the quiet of her small town. Nestled among rolling hills and dense woods, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. But after her parents' sudden move to a new house on the edge of town, things began to feel different. The house was old, the kind that had seen better days. The wooden floors creaked underfoot, and the windows rattled with the wind. The walls, once white, had faded to a dull yellow. But there was something oddly charming about it. At least, that's what she tried to tell herself. The house had been empty for years, and yet it felt like someone was always watching. It started small. The faint feeling of being observed when she was alone in her room, the occasional flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. She brushed it off as her imagination, a side effect of being uprooted and thrown into a new environment. But it only got worse. It began with the window. In her bedroom there was a large bay window that overlooked the backyard and the woods beyond. At night, when the world outside was swallowed by darkness, she would sit by the window watching the trees sway in the wind, trying to calm her restless mind. And every time she did, she felt something, a presence, hovering just outside her line of sight. At first it was nothing more than a vague sensation, a shiver down her spine. But soon she started to see it, something or someone standing in the shadows at the edge of the trees. She would blink, and it would vanish, as if it had never been there at all. The next night, the same thing, and the night after that. One evening after dinner, she mentioned it to her mother. "Mom, I keep seeing someone out there," she said, trying to sound casual. Her mother, busy cleaning the dishes, didn't look up. "It's probably just a deer or a raccoon. This place is surrounded by woods, remember? I know, but it's not an animal, it's a person, or something like a person." Her mother sighed and turned to her with a weary smile. "Hannah, you're probably just imagining things. You're still adjusting to the move, that's all." But Hannah wasn't convinced. She kept watching night after night, convinced that someone was out there, waiting for her to notice. Then, one night, it happened. She was sitting by the window, her breath fogging up the glass as she stared out into the dark. The trees were still, the moonlight casting long shadows across the yard. The air was thick with the scent of pine, and the only sound was the distant hoot of an owl. Her eyes swept over the yard, scanning for any movement when she saw it, an outline in the distance. A figure standing perfectly still, just beyond the reach of the trees. Her heart skipped a beat. This time it wasn't a fleeting glimpse or a trick of the light. This figure was solid, tall, and unnervingly still. She squinted, trying to make out any details. It was too far away, but she could tell it wasn't an animal. It was human-shaped, standing upright like a person. Hannah's pulse raced, her hands trembling. She wanted to look away, but something compelled her to keep watching. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, staring at the house, at her. She slowly backed away from the window, her breath coming in short gasps. The figure hadn't made a sound, it hadn't even moved, but she knew deep down that it was aware of her, watching her. The next day she told her mother again, but this time her voice was more urgent. "Mom, I saw it again, the person out there in the yard. I swear it's not just my imagination, it's real." Her mother didn't laugh this time. She frowned, concern crossing her face. "I don't know, Hannah. Maybe we should talk to the neighbors, see if anyone else has noticed anything strange." But when they asked the neighbors, no one had seen anything out of the ordinary. No one had noticed any strange figures in the woods, no unusual activity in the area. Everyone shrugged it off as if it was just another one of the town's oddities. That night, after her mother had gone to bed, Hannah stayed up, determined to get to the bottom of it. She sat by the window again, her eyes scanning the yard. The wind had picked up, making the branches of the trees sway and creak. The darkness felt oppressive, as if the world beyond the glass had swallowed everything whole. Then, Just as she had feared, she saw it again. The figure was there, standing at the edge of the trees, barely visible against the blackness of the night. This time it was closer, much closer than before. Her heart pounded in her chest as she watched it. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, but Hannah felt its presence as if it were pressing in on her, suffocating her with its quiet, watchful gaze. Suddenly, the figure began to move. Slowly, it stepped forward, one deliberate step at a time. Each step seemed to take forever, as if it was coming for her. But Hannah couldn't look away. She was frozen, her body paralyzed with fear. The figure moved closer, closer, until it was standing just outside her window. Hannah could see it clearly now, the pale, gaunt face staring in at her with hollow eyes. It wasn't human, not completely. Its features were twisted, distorted, like something trying to mimic a person but failing. Its skin was too pale, too smooth, and its eyes, they were black, empty voids, sucking in the light around them. And then it smiled. The smile was wrong, far too wide, stretching unnaturally across its face, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. Hannah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle the scream rising in her throat. But it was too late. The thing outside her window had heard her. Its head tilted, its smile widening even further as it began to move toward the glass, its fingers scraping against the surface. It was coming for her. In a panic, Hannah ran to the door, throwing it open and bolting down the stairs. She didn't look back. She couldn't. But as she reached the bottom of the staircase, she froze. There, standing in the hallway, was the figure, its hollow eyes locked onto hers. It was inside the house, and it was smiling.